The most dangerous time in a victim's life is when they choose to leave their abusive relationship. This is because leaving marks a significant loss of control for their abusive partner, and that can make abuse escalate. In fact, the majority of domestic violence homicides and serious injuries occur when the victim ends the relationship. Now, that does not mean that leaving is impossible or that you should just stay in an abusive relationship. It just underscores the critical importance of developing a safety plan that is tailored to your individual experiences. It is designed to help you remain as safe as possible. This is Unsilenced, a JBWS podcast where we have real conversations about abuse. I'm MC Robinson, and today I'm speaking with JBWS staff member Robin Hughes about how to safely leave an unhealthy relationship. Robin has worked with hundreds of victims of abuse throughout her career, helping them to remain safer in their relationships. In this episode, we discuss general ideas on how to increase your safety when leaving an abusive relationship, or if you're currently in an abusive relationship and aren't planning on leaving. This episode covers safety planning with children, the importance of documenting abuse, potential sources of location tracking, how to switch up your routine for safety, how to de-escalate an abusive situation, how to stay safe after you leave an abusive relationship, resources for support, and literally so much more. But please note, as you listen to this episode, that every person's circumstance is different. You are the expert in your own relationship and know best how to keep yourself and your family safe. Please choose only what works for you. But before we get into this episode, please take a moment to subscribe to Unsilenced wherever you get your podcasts, because it helps us to break the silence surrounding domestic violence.
Safety planning is already being done by people who are in abusive relationships. They already are doing it. We're just adding to their already existing plan
Right.
because that's how they navigate it. They
Mhm.
navigate that relationship with a safety plan in place. They may not label it as a safety plan, but
Mhm.
it is. It's a safety plan. It keeps them safe every day.
So, look, what is the first thing you say to a victim when you encounter them about keeping themselves safe? Like, how do you approach that situation?
Well, if they're getting a restraining order, if they're not, the whole thing about a safety plan is it's tailored to their life, what they're already experiencing. So we don't start out with a safety plan. We just listen, find out what they do already
Hmm.
to de-escalate situations. And hopefully we're just going to add to that plan already. And we talk about it, for example, if someone is undocumented and they're
Hmm.
in this country, I don't have to safety plan with somebody who's documented uh,
Right.
around that topic. So crisis response team people will pull out of the story
Hmm.
gaps that may need additional planning for potential emergencies that arise.
Hmm.
Like the number one, I think, safety plan is call 911.
Yeah.
If something is happening and you feel unsafe in your home, the number one safety plan is calling 911.
Mhm.
And what's interesting about that one tip is if this wasn't someone they love, care about, depend on, or in a relationship with, there would be no hesitation in
Yeah.
calling 911 if it was a stranger doing these behaviors, right?
Mhm.
But because this is a relationship and someone they care about or need, that's this pause. So
Right.
to be able to remind them, 911 is there to keep you safe. It's
Mhm.
there in case of an emergency. That is the first thing you should think of when you're feeling unsafe.
Hmm.
So that is like the number one tip. And we get there pretty quickly in an intervention.
Hmm. Have you encountered people with a reluctance to call 911 based on, maybe not
Absolutely.
wanting to involve the police or different, you know, government
Yes.
officials or something?
Yeah, 100%. And based on their past experience with the police, what if
Yeah.
they were called and not necessarily validated in their
Yeah.
experience with the police? They're
Yeah.
not going to believe me anyway. Or if this person gets arrested, then I can't pay the rent and me and my family are going to be on the street,
Right.
right? So the consequences to that call can be more than we would think of, right? We would say, oh, you're not safe, call 911. You need the police, you call
Yeah.
911. But there are certainly things that need to be discussed as to what the apprehension is to
Mm.
involving the police and to work around that.
Yeah.
Um, if the police are not something that they feel would actually help them, then
Hmm.
what are the other things we can do, right? Can we go directly to the Family Justice Center and
Right.
unpack it and do additional safety planning? Can you go to a trusted friend and reevaluate your living situation to keep you safe? Like, we definitely will work around that.
Right. And the solution isn't just stay in the abusive relationship. It's like there are other workarounds. There are
Right.
different avenues for help that I think are important. And even just kind of as we go through the safety plan, I think you'll see different things that you can glean, even if you don't intend on leaving the relationship, which I thought was kind of interesting. If you're in an abusive relationship, but you aren't living with your partner, or it's a period of calm, there's no active threat right now. What
Mhm.
are some ways that you can prepare yourself for safety? I think this is kind of called non-emergency preparation and planning. So before something happens, like are there certain things that you can put into place to keep yourself safe or safer in the future?
Well, I think that's the whole premise of a safety plan is it's whether they're staying, whether they're leaving, whether they've already left, right?
Yeah.
There's places that someone is going to be in when they're necessarily thinking of a safety plan.
Hmm.
If they're staying, like I said before, they have a safety plan in place.
Yeah.
They are not recognizing it as a safety plan. So we're in the calm, but what happens when it starts to shift to
Hmm.
a place where they're not safe? So that would be a discussion around how do we de-escalate? How do we remove ourselves from that environment, right? Oh, I got to go get the kids from school. Or, we have no milk, right? How do we not engage in the behavior so that it reaches a point where it's not manageable anymore? That type of safety planning is super important when they're trying to navigate or get a plan in place to leave,
Yeah.
right? They didn't leave yet, they're still in that environment. So how do we recognize the signs that this is becoming uncontrollable or out of control
Mm.
and get ahead of it? So that is a huge piece of when they're staying. And again, if it does get to that place where it is unmanageable, do they have a plan in place for the kids to leave the room and call 911? Do they have a code with a family member saying, oranges, so that they know that means call the police for me. I'm not in a safe place to call the police, right? That can happen when they're still together and they're still in that place. So having a plan for others around you to know that you're in an unsafe place.
You know, it's interesting because you mentioned recognizing the signs that it's getting out of control or building up again. Could you just kind of touch upon that? Let's say somebody's living with their partner that's using abuse. What are some of the signs, maybe that it's getting to an uncontrollable level, where you need to use those de-escalation tactics?
Well, we know jealousy is a huge component, right? So
Mhm.
if someone comes home from work and that person's saying, "Who are you with today?" and that person is not believing what's being said, and the tone, the voices are getting louder, and the accusations are getting stronger, and
Mhm.
their presence is getting bigger in the room, and
Mhm.
that person who's dealing with abuse is getting smaller in
Yeah.
the room.
Yeah.
That's a sign. This is how do we have a conversation? Because you're dealing with someone necessarily who doesn't know how to have a calm conversation,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I think jealousy, for example, is a very strong component in an unhealthy relationship when that other person never trusts.
Mm.
So no matter what this person is going to say, it is not going to settle that person's thought,
Right.
right? And they know that. They've been with this person a long time. And when they're not unable to bring it back down to a level that is manageable, that's their sign.
Right.
Okay, this isn't working. What am I going to do next, right?
Mm.
Am I going to have to find a way to get out of this environment to calm it down? And interesting enough, safety planning sometimes takes place while they're having a calm because
Yeah.
you know what? I want to be able to communicate with you. I want to be able to for you to trust me and believe me, right? So when you don't trust me, is there a way that I can communicate with you so you don't get so angry?
Right.
That's a conversation and that's a safety plan you're happening before it happens, right?
Mm.
So if it starts to happen, you can say, hey, can we go back to the conversation we had? What do I need to say to you now so that we can bring this back down to a level so we can communicate better,
Yeah,
right?
and is that kind of some of those de-escalation practices? Because I think there's also something in there about placating someone just to get to maybe a calmer level. Can you kind of go into that and what that could look like? Because I also imagine that it doesn't always feel good to placate someone when you're in that situation.
Well, that's the walking on eggshells, right?
Yeah.
That is exactly what walking on eggshells is. And
Hmm.
they will know that this isn't working. This trying to de-escalate isn't working. And what it looks like is agreeing with them, even though you know in your heart that's
Right.
not true,
Hmm.
or and asking, what can I do to make you feel better? What can I say so that you aren't so angry with me right now?
Hmm.
And having to sometimes bite their tongue. When you feed into the fire grows.
Right.
If you don't feed into the fire, sometimes that makes it grow too, which is why I'm going to go back to it's a very individualized based on that human.
Right.
And who knows that human better than
Mhm.
the person who's in that relationship with them. So me saying, you know what you're going to say is going to make them more angry. So
Yeah.
in this situation, don't say what's going to make them more angry.
Right.
Right? Even though
Hmm.
you want to instinctually fight back,
Hmm.
sometimes for your own safety, it's better to not fight back.
Yeah.
That's the key to a safety plan, right? Until you can get to the next space, back off. Don't add to it because you're not going to win. And you know this person, and you know you're not going to win. So
Hmm.
pick your battle,
Hmm.
right? Just pick your battle because it could end tragically if you don't pick your battle.
Right. And I think, I think some people could hear that and have an aversion to it because it's like, well, why do I have to alter my behavior if they're the person that's abusing me and they're in the wrong? But I think you kind of spoke to this a little bit, but it's because there's a very real threat to your safety
Right.
that you
It's
have to.
all about safety. It's
Yeah.
all about safety. What do you have to do to be safe right in this moment?
Yeah.
And it's interesting if well, I always say this a lot, you're going to lose some battles here,
Mm.
right? And if you're planning on leaving, be willing to lose a couple of battles so that you win the war, so that
Right.
you get out safely, right? That's tough. It is a very hard ask. But through the whole unhealthy relationship, that's a hard ask,
Hmm.
right? To be that person who has to walk away or step back so that it doesn't escalate to a point of being unsafe or unhealthy.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's almost inherently like, it's uncomfortable. But to your point, the outcome could be really very seriously bad if you keep feeding into it. And it sucks that you have to be the one to walk away.
Mm,
But I think that that is part of it. And domestic violence is just kind of unfair sometimes.
yeah. And it being individualized, many times I see victims who have no voice ever.
Yeah.
So their lack of voice it's never there. So they don't feed into it, but it still doesn't de-escalate it, right? They already have been programmed not to engage because they know it's futile and it's
Yeah.
not going to help.
Right.
That's even more dangerous because there's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
They know it's going from 0 to 100 and they have no brakes on it. So safety planning with that person would be very different. So this engagement that we have with somebody affords us an opportunity to kind of get a glimpse into who they are and
Right.
what plan would work best for them,
Hmm.
right? So it is very, very individualized in someone's life,
Totally.
what will work and what will not work.
Hmm. And if you think about this, like I don't want to call it like blue skies, like safety planning, where there's, like I said, no imminent threat. They're kind of preparing. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing this, but if there are any tips that you would want people to know in those kind of calmer lulls, to prepare, like certain documents that they need, or medical records, or financial things, like anything like that, maybe legal stuff to build a case. Are there any general tips that you could give them to start collecting or doing, maybe without even their partner obviously knowing?
Mm. Well, a major tip is don't remove things from your home.
Hmm.
Because if you start removing things, you may get caught, right? If all of a sudden the birth certificates are gone or the bank statements are gone,
Yeah.
and this person controls the bill paying, right?
Hmm.
They're going to notice, and that is going to put you at risk.
Hmm.
So, is it possible to take pictures of things and send them to a trusted friend? So you
Right.
have them, but you didn't take them, because
Smart.
people who are controlling control a lot,
Yeah.
right? And you may think, oh, I'm going to get a plan in place, and I'm going to take the birth certificates, and I'm going to take
Mhm.
our marriage license, and I'm going to take my child's immunization schedule, right?
Yeah.
And that person will notice it if they are that controlling.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would definitely suggest taking pictures of things, sending it, don't keep it on your phone, send it off and delete. Like, don't save anything on your phone. Um, Also, I'm going to plug the Family Justice Center. Like, that is a location to go to that if you want to dump stuff, if you want to put it in your file, that's a place you can do it and no one would have it. Like, if you don't have this family support, for somebody to hold your stuff, then you have to think another safety plan, think outside of the box. I don't have a trusted friend. I don't have any family here. How can I do this in a safe way?
Hmm.
Um, so it's that outside of the box thinking with safety planning that sometimes is really crucial. Medications, right? If you're taking medications and you're planning on leaving, it's a good idea to have a list of your medications somewhere,
Yes.
right? If
Hmm.
you're trying to leave and you have to leave in an emergency, grab your medication because if you don't, then you're going to have a police escort back to get it. And that could make you feel a certain way and put you at risk also. So,
Yeah, definitely.
um, things like clothes, if you're planning on leaving, to pack a bag and have it somewhere else, have
Hmm.
it at your friend's house so that if you do have to leave, you have, a change of underwear, you have your kids'
Yeah.
clothes, your kids', favorite toy, right? Planning around that and having a safe place to go.
Hmm.
That's a plan ahead of time, right? So, hey, I'm going to call my friend Marcia and say, hey, if I am unsafe, is your place a safe place for me to run?
Right.
Right? So have a place to go if you're going to plan on leaving and a route to get there that other person wouldn't know.
Right.
So if they know your sister's address, maybe that's
Hmm.
not the safest spot to go to, but if you had to go to it, how would you get there in a way that they know you wouldn't take that highway or that street to get there, right? If you're
Yeah.
fleeing. So there's a lot involved in safety planning. And like I said, when I'm sitting with somebody and they're telling me what they do already, right?
Yeah.
So say someone is in an unhealthy relationship and they're leaving their work late.
Hmm.
They're already making those calls, doing damage control on the way home.
Hmm.
I'm just leaving my office now. I have to stop for milk. I'm gonna, and they better have that receipt. That's their safety plan,
Right. Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah.
already doing it. But say they get home and that situation is already out of control. What plan did they have in place now to get out of it, right?
Right.
In my head, I'm going to my sister's. I'm gonna call my best friend. I have a sign in place so that if I text this word, they know I'm in danger. We have a
Yeah.
place to meet, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's very complicated but we're just adding to what they do already.
Right. Yeah. So it's just additional like strategies where they could stay safe. And
Yep.
it's interesting because when I was talking about this, one of our community questions, what that came up was, where do I go? Because oftentimes in an abusive relationship, you've been isolated. Maybe you don't have that relationship with your family or friends or people that would be willing to open their home to you. So, where would people go in that situation if they don't have friends or family?
That's an interesting thing you said too, because I do find sometimes even people who feel they have a support system, they're afraid to invite trouble in.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it really leaves someone who's experiencing an unhealthy relationship floundering
Yes.
with no resource, right? Um, you could have a best friend, but that best friend has two small children. Do they want this person to now to show up at their doorstep and frighten them and their kids, right? So there's
Yeah.
more to that plan than meets the eye. If sadly, what happens is if someone has to leave their home for safety, they're walking away from everything
Yeah.
to be safe. That's the give there. Like you can take a small amount of your personal items, but what's most important to you?
Yeah.
because that's all you get to take, right? You're walking away from your house, your kids' toys, your beautiful pictures on the wall, your sense of security, and you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You're almost being punished for
Mhm.
someone else's bad behavior.
Mhm.
And if it gets to where there's no resource, then we would try to get them placed in shelter, right?
Mhm.
That would be our number one location for them to be safe, which is an undisclosed location to keep them safe. If we're full, and we have no placement, then we would have to advocate to another county and try to get them placement there in another county.
Mhm.
There's other programs based on, if I have someone who's LGBTQ,
Mhm.
I have additional resources that maybe can house them and keep people safe.
Right.
And again, outside of the box thinking, what is the best answer for this person? And they have to want that answer, right?
Right.
That's not my job to make that decision for them. Okay, I'm going to ask you for safety. Do you want to leave your home and go into shelter? They may not. I may, in my core, say, oh, this person is so unsafe, but it's a decision only they can make
Mhm.
because they have a right to make a choice for themselves.
Yeah.
But we would definitely try to place them somewhere safe where this person would not know where they are because we know that statistically, when someone leaves, is the most dangerous time for them. That is when you got to pull out all the critical tools, experience to keep that person safe because that's where the risk lies when you're taking someone's power away. And leaving, huge statement. That's a
Mhm.
huge power move. And it takes people a very, very long time to get to that space where they feel that it's time to go.
Yeah, it is interesting because I actually forget the exact statistics, but I know the risk is significantly higher. And it's the most dangerous time when a person decides to leave their relationship. And so just thinking about that, like, are there other, like, what are the basic safety planning techniques, if you can share, that people would do once they've left? Because as we know, that is when danger is the highest. So are there any specific realms you think that they should do or suggest them to look into or things to protect themselves?
Yes. Well, let's talk about the main one right now,
Yeah.
right? Is this
Yeah.
the
Yep.
phone?
Hmm.
If that person pays the bill, they
Hmm.
have access to the phone calls. They have access to the text messages, possibly. They could have a GPS on there and know where you are anyway, and you may not even know it.
Yes.
So being able to have that phone scanned, being able to shut the GPS off on your phone so
Hmm.
someone can't track you to your next location
Right.
is huge.
Right.
Because we see that all the time.
Hmm.
Scanning their car, making sure there's no Apple tag somewhere in that car under a mat, right? They could be tracking their car on a new car where you have the ability to find my car,
Oh my gosh.
right?
I
If
didn't
they
even
bought
know
your
that.
car, they can find your car. They know where you are. They know where you're parking. They know what supermarket you're at, what mall you're at, right? They can
Right.
track you, and you didn't even think that they were going through your car.
Wow.
So that is another one. Technology is ever changing, and technology can be used for good, but it also can be good. It could be bad. It could
Yeah.
be very bad and put people at a lot of risk. So the
Yeah.
first thing we do talk about is that device, is that electronic device. Laptops, another thing they can track through your laptop. So if you're taking your
Like
laptop and it
find
was
my, right?
right, it could
Mhm.
be sitting on your desk because you work from home. They could have passed by, put some program on your laptop,
Right.
and now you're taking your laptop because you need it for work, but they know where you are, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of intel that goes into being safe that you may not have thought of 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even Instagram, like, and Snapchat, like, and geotagging. So, like, when you
Yeah,
take a photo, the metadata can sometimes pinpoint exactly where you are.
yeah.
Just real quick before we keep going on this, in regarding technology abuse and stalking and surveillance, if somebody thinks, like, okay, I think they might be tracking my phone or my computer, is there like a place that they could go to like have it seen, or like do they have to do a factory reset on their computer? Like, what is something that like you would advise them if they think that's happening?
Well, the thing is, who owns the phone? Let's start there.
Right.
If you don't own your phone and that other person does, they're not even gonna, you can't take it to a Verizon store and say, can you check my phone? Because they're not gonna do it without the other party.
Right.
Whoever's paying that bill, is the one who has the password is allowed to have access to your phone data.
Right. Right.
So that could be a barrier.
Yeah.
If you think there's a tracking device in your car, you should go to a mechanic and say,
Mhm.
hey, can you look in the rear, look in the tire wells, look under the seats.
Right.
Those are things you can do yourself, but sometimes someone who knows the anatomy of a
Yeah.
vehicle might be better equipped to know where to look for those
Hmm.
type of things. There's definitely things online now that you can look up where would a tracking device be. I would also pay attention to your phone because if there's a tracking device near you, many phones now will say there's a tracking device near you. I mean, I have a
Yeah.
tracking device on my
Yeah.
dog, and every time I put his collar on, my phone goes off and says, "Hey, there's a tracking device."
Yeah, that happened to my
So,
brother once. It was something like an AirTag has been following you for the past X whatever time, and I think that alert is like really important because it's like okay, like his turned out to just he lived too close to his neighbor, but like which I thought was interesting. But I think that that is like a good sign too of like
yeah,
also if you just think that it could be a possibility, I think you could do like a factory reset on your computer, which does
absolutely.
suck but it also removes a lot of things like that or it makes you it signs you out of Find My and all that stuff that Apple also does. And I don't think people know that tracking is just like inherently baked into our technology. I mean, even an Aura ring or a
Yeah.
Fitbit text things like it's really kind
Mhm.
of getting outrageous.
It is, and we can't keep up with it. The
Yeah.
way you can track someone, we can't keep up with. If it's a computer that your company owns, bring it to your IT.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Go to your IT person and say, hey, I think there might be something up with my computer and let them do a sweep of it and see if there's anything on there. If you do find something, you should report it.
Mm,
You should go to the police and report it because that is stalking, right? I
right.
think people underreport that piece of it. They're like, by the time I hear about a tracking device, something else happened and they're going to, oh,
Right.
3 months ago, I found a tracking device in my kid's backpack,
Mhm.
but they never reported it, right? So we do talk about that. If you find something, say something, put it on the record, go to the police, share that with
Yeah.
somebody. And I think the police will document for them also,
Yeah.
and they don't have to necessarily take it to the next level, right? They
Right.
could walk in and say, I found an air tag. I just want to report it. They don't have to get a restraining order,
Right. Right.
right? They don't have to go to the next step, but it's certainly worth documenting that it happened.
Right. Just so there's like a trail. And I think this also leads into the question about like, if you're preparing for like a legal case or something, like what are the stuff that you do? So like having that report to the police, even if you're not, doing anything with it, just having like a paper trail, having
Right.
like evidence somewhere, helps you in the future if you're trying to seek a restraining order or something like that. Like, is that correct?
That is correct. And documenting in some way. So if you have something on your phone, say it's your phone, you pay the bill, there's no way someone can see these apps. They have hidden apps now that
Yes.
you can document information. And if you document information, that has a lot of weight when you do have to go to court, right?
Right.
So if you say Christmas Eve, this happened, New Year's Day, this happened, you're keeping a diary of what you're experiencing. And that does weigh in of a pattern of behavior, right? By the time we're seeing somebody, we're only seeing what's sticking out of the surface of the water.
Right.
But there's so much more that led up to that space.
Mhm.
So sometimes having that backup, especially with attorneys who are going to represent you, they need the backstory. They need more information because what's up here may be so minuscule compared to what's under the surface.
Right.
So documentation in a safe way, right? You don't want to just put it on your notes that someone can sit there, open your phone and see everything you're keeping.
Right.
You want to really take steps to keep it safe and secure so that you're safe and secure.
Right. Yeah, like encrypted thing or password protected, even though that could get tricky too if they see that you have a password protected thing. But yeah, to keep it safe that you can reference. But
Right.
going back to kind of the overarching question, you said the first thing you say when somebody's about to leave to keep them safe is you talk about the phone. Then what are the other things that you discuss right up front?
Well, if it depends on the situation. Are they getting a restraining order? Are they not getting a
Right.
restraining order, right? Are they just leaving without that restraining order, right? They're
Right.
just, I'm leaving now. I don't want to do this anymore. That safety planning, still call 911.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a restraining order and you feel unsafe, still call 911. Disable your phone so wherever you're going. If
Yeah.
there's children involved,
Yeah.
that's a different thing than if they were in a dating relationship,
Mhm.
right? If they still have to be connected to that human because they have to exchange children and that the children still have visitation with this person, that's a different safety plan than a single human, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're asking me for like, ooh, examples. It changing codes.
Yeah.
That's a universal one. Change all your passwords. If you've been with this person, they know, oh, my favorite animal is Bugsy, and they're gonna
Yeah.
know that could possibly be your password to your bank account or your Locksbox or whatever. So that would be code changing passwords on your Instagram, your Facebook, your email.
Yeah.
Change everything. You have to do your due diligence so that this person can't find a back door into your life when
Right.
you're ready to leave,
Right.
right? If you don't, if I have somebody who's in their 70s, which I have,
Mhm.
they don't have internet. That's not a safety plan item I would even discuss with them because they don't utilize that platform for
Right.
anything. So
Right.
I would skip over that. So even though my people go out with a packet full of safety planning
Yeah.
tips, they're going to pull out based on the story what's relevant to this situation.
Yeah.
Um, and it varies so much. Like I said, if someone gets a restraining order, that's going to look very different, right? Explaining what the guidelines of safety are embedded into that restraining order, right? So if they call, if they text, if they reach out on social media, if they have a family member call to speak for them, that's third
Yeah.
party contact,
Yes.
so that they truly understand the weight that is in that restraining order holds and how
Mhm.
that is in place to keep them safe, right?
Mhm.
And if they violate it, to report it,
Right.
right? If you have this piece of paper and this person is still calling you and you're not letting anyone know that this is happening,
Yeah.
then they're not being violated and held accountable to this safety that you put in place.
Right.
But it's tough.
Mhm.
It's a tough ask.
Yeah.
Even with a restraining order, breaking that tie is very, very hard. It is
Yeah.
it is not an easy, people don't go into it lightly. So we do talk about that safety planning piece of calling the police if it's violated, safety planning if they leave, and if every day on their way to work they stop at a specific convenience store for coffee,
Right.
that person knows they're going to be there for their coffee. So they could potentially be sitting in the lot waiting for them. So don't go there for coffee anymore. We talk about that. If you go to the gym every day at 5 o'clock and that person knows you're going to be at the gym
Yeah.
at 5 o'clock, can you stagger your time? Can you go earlier? Can you be out of there at the time you'd usually arrive at that location?
Right.
Taking a different road to work or to your home. If they know you're a creature of habit and every day you're getting on Route 23 and you're going to make a left at this corner, do something different, remap it, go a different way. Safety planning, if you see somebody when you have a restraining order to not get out of your vehicle, don't engage. Drive right to a police station.
Mhm.
Don't go home. Just drive to a police station, drive somewhere. Having someone on the phone with them. If they're going to drive home, and they're alone, have someone on the phone. Because if you can't call 911, you want someone else to be able to do that for
Right.
you.
Yeah.
So we safety plan that way. If they're if they've already left
Yeah.
and they don't have a restraining order, very much the same safety planning with someone with an order, because the order is a piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of paper. It is not the end all and be all to their safety.
Right.
Sadly, the due diligence of safety falls on that person to keep themselves safe. The
Mhm.
police are not sitting outside their house 24/7,
Mhm.
right? The legal system is not at their, beck and call to help them. So really, this safety planning is the biggest part of what the crisis response team does
Right.
because it's that's where their safety lies. Not
Mhm.
in the restraining order, not in the police involvement, not in the legal system, not in the court system, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say one thing. I had a police department call me the other day, and they're like, this person made terrible terroristic threats, and I'm very concerned for this person. And we're going to charge them based on what they heard.
Mhm.
But how can we keep her safe?
Wow.
The police asked this officer called me to say, Robin, what can I do to keep her safe?
Wow.
And my first response to him was, I appreciate you asking me the
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'm going to meet with this victim anyway, and I'm going to safety plan, but you're right.
Yeah.
This officer feels,
Yeah.
and again, this is through education, is so in tune with the fact that this arrest and these charges are not the end all be all to this woman's safety.
It's
And he
amazing.
saw it, which
Wow.
is such a different space than we were
Wow.
5 years ago, 10
That's
years ago,
awesome. Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
really made my heart feel good that he was recognizing the safety concerns, whether or not the police were involved. Like he knew what he could do, but he knew it wasn't enough.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment for me to see someone in a police department actually thinking differently about it wasn't about the paperwork. It wasn't about the restraining order. It wasn't about the charges. It was
Wow.
about keeping this human safe after she walked out the door. It's
Wow.
great. It's just
Yeah.
incredible.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, and also knowing it is a restraining order can be limited. Like, I think you've even said this, you could walk right through a restraining order. It doesn't stop it in the moment. It's
No.
just kind of retroactive a little bit, or you can call and whatever. But like, it's not like a fence. You know what I mean? That's going to keep somebody 100% out. So I think the knowledge that like even if you have a restraining order, it's really important to still safety plan. Like it's not the be all end all. And I think something in that plan too is like let other people know that you have a restraining order against this person because if they come to your job or they come to your apartment building or something, other people can have eyes out. So it's not just you because you can't constantly be aware of your surroundings 24/7.
Right, right. And we do talk about that, making sure if your children go to daycare or school, that the school knows
Right.
if they're a protected party on that restraining order, they shouldn't be going to the school. If you're close with your neighbors, tell your neighbors, I have a restraining order against this person. If you see them, can you please call me and let me know you see them in the neighborhood? Because then they can be on alert. It
Right.
necessarily, just because a neighbor said they saw them doesn't mean it's a violation of a restraining order either.
Hmm.
Just that you did the neighbor take a picture of the car driving by and the license plate? Because it's
Right.
just hearsay. It's
Right.
not enough, right? Another big thing I see very often is someone gets a restraining order and then they get 27 phone calls from a block number.
Right.
Right? Now
Right.
they're going to show up at the police station, which we told them to do if you feel unsafe or you feel whatever, and they're going to say, I got 27 calls from this block number. I didn't answer it.
Yes.
It's him or her calling me.
Yes.
There's no proof that it's him or her calling. That's the problem. So
True.
but again, it's important to document it,
Yeah.
right? So that
Yeah.
if that person slips up and actually sends a text message
Yes.
that and all of those, why aren't you answering my call? Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. We know that was you,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
right. So that again, documentation, reporting is very important when it comes to those restraining order violations.
Would you recommend victims also get cameras if that they're able to purchase them or afford them, or if there's something like that? Like, is that beneficial with a restraining order so that they could kind of prove that, the person is at the house or not? Like, what would you say?
I would say yes to the proving, but
Yeah.
it's not a safety device, right?
Okay.
It's not an alarm
Right.
where someone breaks into your home and the police respond.
Right.
It's something you'd have to access. So if I would say, do you have a Ring doorbell? Like,
Yeah.
do you pay for it so that it's recording people who come by? And I've had it where a person drove by the person's home. They didn't
Really?
they didn't have a ring, but their neighbor did. So the police went to the neighbor and said, "Can we have access to your ring?" And they said yes, even though that person denied being there. It was on the neighbor's
Oh my
ring,
God, that's awesome. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So, but it doesn't help in the moment,
Right.
right? It doesn't. So sometimes it's like a false sense of security. Oh, I have a ring. Yeah, but a ring is only recording. It's not calling the police. It's
Right.
not, so just to be aware of the
Yeah.
limitations of having a false sense of security with
Right.
technology.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's not an alarm system. It's just could alert and then you would have to then act on it. And you'd
Access.
also have to like survey the data that you're even getting from it too, which is
Right.
a lot of also additional work. So just a couple more of these community questions that I have. One is how would you involve children in safety planning if you could talk about it. Like, are there any things that I think you mentioned a code word? Could you safety plan like for a child, like for them to know what to do in a situation?
Absolutely, right? If a parent gets a restraining order and they're a protected party on that restraining order, if they're it's age appropriate. That's
Right,
the thing too. It has to be age appropriate. So if you have a child who is, I don't know, a fifth grader and they know what's happening in their home,
right,
you need to explain the perimeters of that restraining order. So if this person shows up and wants to take you home today from school,
right.
please don't go. Like go back into the school, right? I've had people tr tell their children that if things start getting out of control in the house, so they're still together,
Yeah,
run to the neighbor, tell
right.
the call, have the neighbor call 911, go in the back room and call grandma.
Yes,
And tell grandma things are getting out of control, right? Safety planning, but keep it age appropriate
right,
because you're not going to talk to a 7-year-old the way you're going to talk to a 13-year-old.
right,
And they're viewing the relationship very different. A 3-year-old is viewing the relationship and how much responsibility you're still responsible to keep that child safe. They're not responsible to keep you safe,
right.
right? But a 13-year-old or a 16-year-old can certainly play a part in safety planning.
Yes, yeah.
Um, I just had a victim the other day whose the mom did not want the restraining order, but the son, who was a teenager, said, I don't feel safe at home,
Wow,
mom. I
wow.
don't feel safe in our home anymore, right? That was huge. It was huge for the victim to hear. It was very huge and empowering for the child to say
Yeah,
it, right? And
yeah.
then we safety planned around that. Okay, so if mom does get this restraining order, what can we do to keep you both safe,
Wow,
right?
that's cool.
Talk about that.
Yeah,
But he was in the room and had a voice in this decision making and safety.
yeah,
So, but it
yeah.
was age appropriate, right? We're
It's
talking
also
about 17.
empowering because I feel like a lot of times, like kids, like, feel like they can't do anything. They're just bystanders. And obviously, to a point, like, if they're very young, like, you can't really do anything. But there's also, I think, something that makes you feel good of like, I have a plan to follow. Like, I know if X, Y, and Z happens, like, I can act on that plan. And when you're like 7 years old or 8, maybe that's like your parent said orange, like you said. And then that means, oh, I call grandma and I say, hey, this is going on
Right.
versus like 16 or 13, whatever, that could maybe do more, or 17 that has a car, like, things like that that maybe could be a little different. So I think that that's also important, but to your point, like you can safety plan also for a child to be safer.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting when children are involved, how sometimes a person may want to move forward in a relationship, but those kids don't.
Yeah.
They want to stay. They want that other person to be in their lives and in their home. And
Yeah.
then that weighs in on the person who's trying to be safe in a
Yeah.
negative way
Yeah.
and kind of cements them a little longer in that space.
Yeah.
And they have to know their kids. Is this someone who's going to support me in this safety plan?
Mhm.
Or someone who's going to hinder the ability for me to stay safe because their alliance is with that other person,
Right.
right? So it is like very nuanced in the relationship between the parent and the child
Mhm.
in both parties, right? The person who's using harm and the person who's being harmed. What is the relationship with the children?
Yeah.
To know whether or not they would be an active participant in safety
Mhm.
or sabotage that safety,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Very interesting. Another community question that we have is, and this might be too broad of a topic, but I don't know if you want to just kind of cover it quickly. Are there any tips for staying safe when weapons are in the house? Guns or knives or other things like that?
Yeah, that is first of all just the normal safety practices when there's weapons in the house to make sure they're locked up, to make sure they're not laying around your home like access is the access is what heightens the risk, right?
Right.
If it's in the nightstand just next to the bed, it's easily accessible. But if it's in a lockbox where you have to get the small little key and you've got to go
Yeah.
because it's hidden in the attic somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of thought that has to go into getting that weapon to
Right.
use this in this altercation. Um, and report it. If someone does show up at the police station because a situation is escalating, the police will always ask, are there weapons in your home?
Right.
If that is an important time, especially if someone's going to leave, those weapons will be seized by the police when
Yeah.
they get a restraining order, at least temporarily, to keep them safe. It's
Right.
not because they want that person punished or they want their civil rights taken away or whatever. It's about safety.
Mhm.
And to keep that in the forefront when they're talking to the police, they will always say, are there weapons in your home? For
Right.
a couple of reasons. They want to keep the person safe, but if they have to go serve a restraining order at that home,
Oh,
they need
yeah.
to know there's a weapon in that house so that they stay safe,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah.
And the seizure of weapons with a restraining order is there's a reason for it.
Hmm.
Because we, like we said before, this is the most dangerous time in a relationship when you're taking your power back and leaving.
Right.
So that's why it's super important that the police are aware that there's weapons in the home and the procedure can be done and put in place for safety, that those weapons are removed from the home.
Right, because the weapons could be used to harm the person that's using abuse and the victim a lot of the
Yeah.
times, right? So there's like that
Yeah.
double threat.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
right? If you're taking their power away, is are they at risk of harming themselves because they've lost their power,
Yes.
right? Or are they at risk of hurting other family members in retaliation for you leaving, right?
Mhm.
People that you care about. So it's just a very good safety plan to make sure that you're reporting there's weapons in the home.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think we covered a lot in this episode. So just to kind of recap to anybody that's listening, if you could give somebody that's experiencing abuse some tips on how to stay safe right now, like the most important things they should do, what would you say are those? Even if we covered them again, just to kind of bullet point it, but verbally.
I'm going to say call the police is the
Yeah.
number one. Like,
Mhm.
please, please call the police because they are trained to come in, de-escalate,
Yeah.
evaluate the situation, and protect you and serve you.
Yeah.
So, as long as you have that in the forefront, that is always your go-to when you're feeling unsafe, whether it's a stranger or whether it's your partner,
Yeah.
the number one thing. And then have, when you're talking to an advocate, share with them what you already have in place to
Yeah.
keep yourself safe so that they can expand upon that process and talk about other things.
Yeah.
Um, about like changing your route to and from work, changing your time you come and go from your home, involving neighbors. Like there's definitely a lot involved in safety planning, documenting if you're planning on leaving, identifying a safe route to and from places you're going.
Yeah.
Just and outside the box thinking.
Yeah.
Check your technology. Make sure that you don't have any tracking devices on your vehicle or whatever. And safety planning isn't a one-time thing, right? I'm not meeting with somebody one time and they're expected to remember all of this
Right.
safety planning we go through,
Yeah.
right? We're connecting them to additional services. So if I see them, we're safety planning. If they're going to court, they're going to be safety planned with again. If they're coming into shelter, they're going to be safety planned with again. If they're going to the Family Justice Center, more safety planning. So it is not a one thing. It's not a one-time thing. And the safety plan will change according to their situation.
Right.
So we just need to make sure we touch base on all those spaces where they move to
Mhm.
change and tweak the safety plan along the way.
Hmm. So when somebody asks you how to leave an abusive relationship safely, would your main advice be, here's some tips, but also you should call and connect with like a domestic violence advocate or the police or somebody that can,
Helpline.
would you say?
The helpline, call the
Hmm.
helpline. If you feel you're in an unhealthy relationship and you feel unsafe, you can always reach out to the helpline when you're alone and say, "Hey, this is what's going on in my life. I'm afraid." And the helpline will safety plan. When you involve the police or if you're, in an emergency room situation where you've physically been hurt, an advocate could come sit with you and talk to you right there at that location and
Yeah.
safety plan with you there.
Yeah.
And the internet can be good used for good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Google safety planning and see what fits into your life and what you do already and just add to it on your own. Um, but again, the due diligence falls on the person.
Mhm.
Um, Not like we can do it over and over and over again,
Yeah.
but they really have to do it for themselves because we're not with them all the time.
Yeah. They have to
And
enact
it's,
it.
yeah, it's got to be an active, ongoing process
Yeah.
of safety, not a one-time safety.
Yeah, and anyone can call, like obviously if you're in Morris or Passaic County, like JBWS helps you, but even nationally, like there's the domestic violence hotline and there's resources to no matter where you are that you're listening, which I think is good to direct people to. So, is there anything else you'd want to add about keeping yourself safe in an abusive relationship that we didn't get to that you think is very important to touch upon?
Well, I do want to say about the helpline, you can text now. Like we
Yeah.
have text lines where you don't even have to talk to a person if it's unsafe for you to be on the phone.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who's more comfortable texting, you can text, I feel unsafe
That's
in my
cool.
relationship, and they will talk to you that way. Um, Again, even if you're not at that space where you want to call, confide in somebody you trust.
Yeah.
Bring someone else into your circle to keep you safe too.
Yeah.
Someone who you know cares about you, someone who will hear you and hear your concerns and be able to plan with you,
Yeah.
right? Don't try to do it by yourself if you don't have to. Just know that you need to bring people in, whether it's an agency, whether it's the legal system, whether it's the police, or whether it's just your best friend or family member. Don't live in the silo of this. You
Mhm.
have to step out of the silo to let people help you.
Mhm.
It's really like the biggest thing is it is a big secret to be in an unhealthy relationship and to be able to step out of that mindset that you're not alone. There are many people who are in the same type of situation. It's not identical, it's not the same, but you have to step out of that space to let people in to help and move you forward safely.
Thank you, Robin, for sharing your expertise in this subject. Whether or not you are planning to leave your abusive relationship, it is critical to develop an individualized safety plan. Check the description for a link to our example safety plan, or call your local domestic violence agency and ask for their assistance in safety planning. And please tune in next time to learn more about all facets of abuse, because education is the first step in ending domestic violence. Thank you for listening to this episode of Unsilenced, Real Conversations About Abuse. This podcast is produced by JBWS, a domestic violence agency that serves both Morris and Passaic County, New Jersey. If you would like a certain topic covered on the podcast, then please send an email to podcast@jbws.org. We are always striving to provide content that will be both educational and helpful to our listeners. But please note that this email is only intended for content relating to the podcast. It is not meant to offer immediate assistance or any access to services. If you live or work in either Morris or Passaic County, New Jersey, and think you might be in an unhealthy relationship, then JBWS is here to help you. Please visit jbws.org/services to learn more about programs for support, or call our 24-hour helpline to speak to a member of our staff at 1-877-782-2873. If you're listening to this podcast and recognize controlling or unhealthy behaviors in yourself, then JBWS can also help you to change those behaviors. Through our Jersey Center for Nonviolence, JBWS offers programs for men, women, and teens who have used abusive or controlling behaviors. Please visit jbws.org/JCNV or call 973-539-7801 to learn how you can stop the cycle of violence. If you don't live in either Passaic or Morris County, then please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Since domestic violence grows in silence, you are helping us break the stigma associated with domestic violence and supporting our efforts to unsilence those impacted by abuse. Please be sure to subscribe to Unsilenced, Real Conversations About Abuse wherever you get your podcasts, and follow JBWS on social media to get as many people talking about abuse as possible. Thank you so much for listening and helping us to break the silence around domestic violence.